Hello and welcome to another video. And is anyone else fed up with me moaning about the weather yet? Ain't summer over yet? It's dragging on forever. Yeah, so what was it? 30 today, and it's been trying to rain at the same time. Yeah, it's just lovely, isn't it? Lovely summer weather. I hate it. I really hate it. Thank you for your support, and I'm giving in. I know some of you, Earth Dog and all that, have mentioned to me about doing buy me a coffee, and you keep saying it, and so I'm going to try and set up a buy me a coffee link, and if I get it done, I'm going to put it in the description of this video and add it to the description of the other video. But again, thank you for your support. The last video, Whitby, it is a strange place, and I really enjoyed reading your comments, and a lot of people have had their own experiences at Whitby and weird experiences at Whitby, and I think it is one of those locations that if you go there with no expectations of the paranormal, you can often be surprised by the eeriness of the place, but also that respect for the history when you see it and you walk around the Abbey, but also when you walk down the lanes, it strikes you at how, I don't know, just how old England and old fishing towns were. On that sort of remit of history, today's one, and I see someone yawned when I said Timeslip. Sorry, but this one has got in it as well. Well, a Timeslip story, and it's Hadleigh Castle, but mainly the ghost stories, and it has got a time-lapse story that I'm going to tell you as well. But yeah, Hadleigh Castle, a 13th century castle, so let's get into it. So Hadleigh Castle is in Essex. It sits on the bank of the estuary of the Thames, and you can't mistake it. I think if anyone comes up from London on a train going to Southend, you're going to see it. It stands out a mile up on the hillside, and it was built around about 1215. Now this is when King John gave a load of land to Hubert de Burgh. Now Hubert was the Earl of Kent at the time, and he was basically the most powerful person in the land apart from the king, so he could do whatever he really wanted. Unfortunately for him, when King John passed away, he sort of became the caretaker to Henry II, who was a boy king. And over the years, they didn't really see eye to eye. He fell out of him, and around about 1239, he gave all the land back. The castle itself grew and redeveloped over the years. In the late 14th century, it was redeveloped again. This was to aid off more attacks coming out from France. So that's what they was really paranoid about. I mean, Henry de Burgh really got his reputation from Dover Castle, where he was defending that from the attacks of the French. It wasn't until Edward III came along that a king actually stayed there. And so he stayed at that castle for a period of time. And it's where we get that saying, the historic romantic royal castle. And that is the tagline you can see plastered all other places when you talk about Hadleigh Castle. Unfortunately, after Edward III, no one really wanted the castle, and it was actually sold to Lord Ritchie. Now, what did he do with it? Did he move into it? Did he keep it as a nice family heirloom and home and a lovely castle? No, he knocked it down and sold it off for rubble. Sounds like Thurrock Council. No, Thurrock officers of Thurrock Council. Yeah, that's what they like doing. Gotta stop doing this politics stuff. But yeah, and that is why a lot of it is missing. And not only that, the castle itself, I laugh because around here we have a problem with London clay. My whole area is built on London clay. And that is why you've got the local park, the paths break up and start sliding down the hill and all this sort of stuff. Hadleigh Castle is built on a mound of London clay. Over the centuries, bits just break off and fall into the banks, and I think the 1950 was the last time one of the big towers went down. I believe that was the North Tower. Part of the North Tower fell down. I know the South Wall has fallen down, so yeah, now it makes a pretty dramatic landscape of that area, so much so that Constable come along and painted it. I'm going to try and stick a copy of Constable's painting on here and hope I don't get a copyright of it, because it's actually a fantastic painting. And Hadleigh Castle is somewhere that I know really, really well. It's only a few miles up the road for me, and I can go to Fobbing and look around on the bend and see Hadleigh Castle on the way up to Southend. Been going up there since I was a kid, and in my last video I did stand around and say about I went up there, done some filming, and then I was going to pop back on the way home and it was too creepy to go. That's mainly because I'm more creeped out by the thought of other human beings being up there and not the ghosts, which is quite sensible, I think. But as a teenager, and when I was at college, I did go up there of a night time, and very much like the night we was up there, it was busy. There was a lot of people up in the middle of summer. People like to chill out and watch the stars up there, and that becomes important for one of our stories later on. Now, what I mean by that, it's a perfect place to go and watch meteor showers. So we are talking about August, but we'll come to that a little bit later on. Talking about August, be my birthday after this video goes out. So this goes on Friday, and Saturday's my birthday. So thank you for your birthday wishes. And I was going to say happy birthday now. Just a heads up, a lot of this filming you're going to see is my own filming on this video. The aerial shots and the drone shots are not mine. I'm a cheapskate. Well, I'm not cheapskate. It costs me a lot of money, these videos. I pay for them off of Getty Images. So I pay a subscription. I paid some extra subscription, and now I get these drone videos. So yeah, they're pretty cool. Couldn't believe it. I found Hadleigh Castle on there. So yeah, I may just spam all this with drone footage. I did that a bit on the old Whitby video as well. You probably noticed that. What is it about Hadleigh Castle that makes it creepy, haunted, spooky place? Well, over the years, there's a number of stories that come out, not about just things like, Dick Turpin was meant to take shelter in there the day before he headed back up north. So people say that Dick Turpin haunts it. Don't really have much credibility on that one, but there is some evidence that Dick Turpin was staying this way. I say, we know at the World's End pub, his counterpart was there, and they did separate, and we don't know where Dick Turpin went that night. He could have gone up to Hadleigh Castle. But for this one, we're not going to start off with a ghost video. We're not going to start off with a time lapse. We're going to start off with one of my favourite subjects, the Black Shuck. Now this is a little bit different. And why is this a little bit different? This was seen during the broad daylight by a group of school children and their teacher, which should say makes it a solid sighting. Now we believe this happened in 1983, and it was in the summer. A local school took the kids up to Hadleigh Castle. They was walking around, and when you're at Hadleigh Castle, you can look down over the fields heading towards South End. The teacher has got them all standing by the southeast tower. Now this is the biggest tower that remains. The teacher's standing there, giving her a little talk on what this castle was, and she noticed that all the children were looking over towards the field. And she asked them what they're looking at. And they're going, there's a big animal down the bottom of the hill. Now, what they meant by the bottom of the hill isn't right over by the fields, but the hill at the top by that tower slopes down. Those children turned around and said that they see a big black animal about the size of a cow. The teacher apparently looked, noticed something was down there, hurried the kids up and moved them to the further end of the castle. I say the castle, it is just ruins, it's just the grass area. She gets them over back to the start of the castle, looks over and describes what you would get these typical sightings of this black shuck. A very large creature. Now apparently the reports do split. The kids say it is as big as a cow. The teacher says it wasn't that big, but she describes it as huge claws and very large teeth. Again, it falls into that thing of the wild animals around the area. Again, the 80s was getting a lot of sightings in that area of black beasts. Now these are either the panthers. It's around about the same year that actually the Canoodan black beast was seen. And not being funny, it's not that far from Canoodan from Hadleigh. You're only going straight line up to Canoodan. It could all be linked. What I'm told by a resident of Hadleigh was that the children went home, and the teacher said, we prefer if you don't really mention anything to your parents about seeing an animal the size of a cow. The kids went home. First thing they'd done was say, Mum, Dad, guess what I see? And the parents all contacted school the next day. Not only that, all the kids, when they were asked to draw a scene of Hadleigh Castle, they drew the castle, but all put this black beast in their drawings. So it did affect all of them. Now I do know that there's this case that if you're with somebody, they see it and you didn't quite see it, subconsciously you turn around and say, yeah, I see that as well. You don't want to be missing out. Some people don't want to be missing out on that experience of seeing something weird. And I've seen, so we mentioned this before with UFOs. There was an experiment done where they took a load of people for a field and they see something weird, but ones who did not look also said they see it. So as they're marching down this lane, they're filming them, and a soldier pops up with a gun, and only half of them see that soldier. By the time they get back and they interview all of them say they see that soldier. But when they look back at the video, half of them did not turn around to see it. So again, it's that, I don't know, it's that human interaction that you don't want to miss out, and you start imagining what they see by their description. Is this what these kids done? And I know this is the same one, that UFO in the school in Australia or South Africa, where they all see this alien craft land in the field, and then all the kids drew the pictures and they all gave the same description. One thing we do know is that over the years, livestock over Hadleigh have suffered attacks by wild animals. Now, most of these are by foxes and by dogs. But in the early 80s, it is reported that sheep were found basically torn apart, that people believed they weren't victims of a fox and that a dog couldn't do that. And they were basically butchered. So, it's... People always jump to the panthers and wild cats. It is plausible. I do believe that at one point in this country, between 60s and late 80s, there was wild panthers in the area. Do they still exist? I don't know. I know again in the 90s, when the Dangerous Animals Act come in, other people let those animals out of their cages. Again, most did not survive in the climate of this country, but some may have. Wild lynxes and all that, they survived, so we don't know. Moving on, we're going to go for a ghost story. Now, for those who watched my Fobbing Waterworks video, you may remember in there I spoke about this black tall figure that was seen at Hadleigh Castle that matched the tall black figure seen at the Waterworks. On research for this, I did discover that this tall black figure has been seen quite a few more times than what I knew. And it is always the same sort of setting. So you're talking early evening, normally around about the winter time. They're up there walking their dogs along now, and they see, sort of silhouetted over the land, this tall black figure in a long black cape. We don't have any descriptions of like facial features, and again that matches the Fobbing Waterworks, where they did not have facial features. They were just like nothing there. They were just these tall gowned people. Are they monks? I don't think so. I don't really have any references to monks ever being at Hadleigh Castle. I may be wrong. There's a church down the bottom of the hill that has its own ghost stories that one day I am going to go there and film. And I found it creepy going there as a kid, actually, that church. It gave me right jitters. Mainly that one and the one by East Tilbury. It always reminded me of Dracula. Very weird. But I do know why, actually, because when I went to one, going off track here, I went to East Tilbury. I went to Coral East Tilbury, and they've got an ice cream van now. My dad bought me a Dracula lolly. And do you remember them? It was like just this red sticky mess. And I was walking around the churchyard eating this thing, thinking about Dracula's blood and all that, and yeah, it gave me the creeps. Core memory unlocked there. That's pretty yeah. Now I've got to pause this. Got to remember what I was up to. That's right. We're talking about the black figures. Well, we're going from black figures to white figures. Now this is the White Lady. If you look up Hadleigh Castle and you type in Hadleigh Castle haunted, you're going to come up with the White Lady of Hadleigh Castle. Now this is a lady that is meant to be seen walking around the ruins of the castle, and it's a very well reported sighting. We're going back from the early 19th century right way up till sort of like a few years ago. This is a very common ghost that we're reporting on. And I'm going to tell you the most popular version of that ghost story. We have Sally. Sally is a milkmaid at Hadleigh Farm. She's down on the ruins of Hadleigh Castle. She's walking around and she sees this white figure standing there. Now this white figure beckons her over. She walks up, and as soon as she walks up to this white figure, she sees that it is a ghost. And the ghost tells her to meet her there at midnight. Sally is scared and she goes back to the farm. She's so scared that she doesn't do that. A few days later, she goes back up to the ruins of the castle, and once again the White Lady is there. The White Lady is said to strike Sally, so much so that it almost separates her neck. And there's a comment that from then on she was known as Wayne Neck Sal. I don't know that that part is true. I do know that this White Lady has had many reports in that area. So August 1989, we have a boyfriend and girlfriend park up at Hadleigh. They get out and they walk down to the castle. They've got a blanket, and what they're going to do is lay at the top of the castle and watch the meteor shower that's coming over. Is it Polaris? Meteor shower in August, is that what we get? They've brought out a flask of drink and they're going to make a long evening of it. They lay the blanket out, they're laying there, and they've got their eyes fixed to the stars. They've seen a few meteors and they're counting them as they go along. It had been a really hot day. As they're looking up, they started to feel really, really cold. The boy turns around and says, I'm going to grab the other blanket. He turns around, he grabs the blanket behind them and pulls it over them. They lay back down, but instead of feeling more warmer, the temperature got colder and colder. The girl sits up. As she sits up, she screams. The boy sits up. Right in front of them is this vision of this White Lady. And apparently this White Lady walks right across them and disappears. As she does that, they say that they feel this icy breeze go right through the core of their body. Now that report ended up in the Yellow Advertiser, which was a local newspaper we had here years ago. I think maybe in Basildon it still may be around, but it's only like probably 2 sheets now. But you know, all newspapers have now really gone online, local ones anyway. But it did end up in that local paper. But it was due to that report being in the paper that other people come forward with older stories of this White Lady. In 1973, a local gentleman from Hadleigh is taking his daily walk along through the castle. Now he has a dog with him. All of a sudden, this dog just freezes and starts barking, and then really starts growling. The bloke is looking around, can't see anything. The dog is facing the southeast tower. Now this is the one that's remaining. And the gentleman's sort of like looking around. As he peers round the corner of the tower, now if you stand in front of the tower, you can't sort of see inside it. As he bends his neck round to look, he sees in the centre of that tower, this White Lady. But he describes her about 8 foot off the ground. This would put her onto the second level of that tower. Now, problem with that is there's nothing in that tower. It's empty. It would mean that she'll be standing on an old floor that would have been in that tower, and you can tell that by the windows of that tower itself and where beams would have come out. That's a little bit of detail that I did find interesting. It reminds me of the one at Palace Mansion, where a boy sees the ghost of a lady open up a invisible door in the middle of the air and disappearing. This lady in this tower would be, to our view, floating. For her, she'd be standing on a solid floor. He didn't hang around and he started backing out with the dog. the dog did not want to go. The dog breaks free. The dog runs into the tower and he's standing right beneath where this lady is, growling and trying to jump up towards this lady. The lady vanishes and the dog whimpers and curls up in a ball on the floor. Now this one was reported again after that first one, so there's a 10-year time period there, but once one report comes out, it does drag up a lot of older reports that people want to tell their stories. Now the next one, the time period I remember well, I can't remember the year, I think it's 93, 94, is when Hadleigh, the comet, was going over. And I do remember it did have I think everything felt really weird during that time of that comet being in the sky. Now, just going out and seeing this comet there for it seemed like months. These gentlemen, they are photographers. They've gone up to Hadleigh Castle with the idea of getting a shot of the castle with Hadleigh going over the top of it. I'm going to try and find those photos now and put them on here. At the time, I was developing photos, it was my job, and everyone was coming in with their photos of Hadleigh, and a lot of them was of Hadleigh Castle with Hadleigh going over them. These photographers were up there. It was a quite chilly night and there's a low mist forming on the ground of Hadleigh Castle. They've lined up the shot perfect. They're on a bit of a long exposure because they wanted the streak of the comet going along. As they're standing there waiting for the exposure to shut, they look across this misty floor and they see this ghost of this white lady walking towards them. He grabs his other camera and starts shooting as many photos as he can. The ghost of this white lady gets to about 10 foot from them before lifting up in the air and flying over the top of them. What does he do? He thinks he's got it on film. The next day, he takes it to a photo lab, pays for a professional photo lab, not ones that we used to run, and gets them developed. All that comes out are these slightly blurred images of Hadleigh Castle with a bit of mist on the ground. You can't see anything of them, of the ghost. He then takes them to the photo lab at Southend. Now the photo lab at Southend was one that I would cover sometimes. That is how we got to know about it in the photo lab, and how the yellow advertiser also got wind of it. Now, if Martin Dalton and all them lot see this video, I want to know if we can get a copy of those photos, because I know that gentleman handed them over to the yellow advertiser, but they never got published because nothing was on them. But I would love to have a copy of that to, with today's technology and all that, to scan those negs, or if that gentleman who took those photos, if you see this video, let me know, because I would love to get hold of your copy of your negatives of that and have a little play around with them myself and see if we can get anything out of them. But yeah, this wasn't the only time this thing happened. Only a few years later, we've got more photographers up there taking photos of the sky. Quite ironically, the day we went up there, a beautiful big moon came up over, and it was full of photographers at the back taking photos of the moon coming up over the castle. This is exactly what these people were doing. And again, they say that they see this ghost, this grey lady, coming out from the southeast corner tower and heading towards them. Now this is always like a diagonal line that she is meant to follow. What I question is that when would she have been about? Because that would not be possible during her time. If she's floating up 8 foot above the ground, it means she is physically seeing the old castle. If she's going to walk diagonally across that ground, surely there would have been little rooms in that castle. But again, that's going into debunking mode. I should just tell the story. But these photographers are taking photos of the moon. This time they don't get a chance to take any photos of her, but she is meant to go straight through the middle of them, leaving them feeling icy cold. Next one, we have a group of 18-year-olds all going up there for a drink, and this is 1998, so fairly recent in my view. They're up there, they've got their beers and probably their, was it WKD and Hooch and all that. Well, that's a bit early, wasn't it, Hooch? Up there having their cheap alcohol, sat in the middle of Hadleigh Castle. They start hearing a cry. One of them says it's just foxes, which is very, very plausible. Others turn around and say, no, it sounds like a lady crying, sobbing. They get up and they start walking towards the edge of what will be the south wall that's gone down. They're looking down and they can't see nothing. Yet this crying noise gets louder and louder. One of their friends has got a boxer dog. This boxer dog goes over there with them and starts growling, looking down into the grass. What happens next scares all of them. They say that two bright red eyes looks out of that grass. The dog turns around and flees back across Hadleigh Castle. The teenagers are staggering back, petrified. One of them shouts out it's a werewolf. Love that. One of them shouts out it's a werewolf. One of them shouts out it's a werewolf. They all turn around and flee towards the car park. Now, when I say car park, Hadleigh Castle hasn't got a car park. It's got a very narrow lane. And there's a gate down the bottom. They all run down now and they all stop by the cars saying, did we really see what we just see? And they're sort of like, I don't know. Then they hear this crying noise again. They look up and literally the other side of the gate, just up the top of the hill, they see these two bright eyes staring at them. They get into the cars and they run off. What we do have for common reports of Hadleigh Castle is people going up there with their dogs and they take their dogs for a walk, and all of a sudden the dogs will freeze and refuse to move. Now this can be anywhere up Hadleigh Castle. It just sort of like strikes them as though being hit by fear, and some of them will growl and start backing back. Others will literally just go motionless. Those sort of reports are not say to a penny, but they do seem to be pretty common. People will try to explain it that it could be an atmospheric change along there. It is one of the highest points along the estuary, and maybe they see something that puts them off. And no, there could be a natural explanation. What there is no natural explanation for on this one, this is a time slip. Okay? And it's a bizarre time slip. And there's multiple reasons why this is a bizarre time slip. And I've spent some time really digging into this and going over old maps and everything. And I'm puzzled. So we have a couple walking along Hadleigh Castle. They're walking down the banks of Hadleigh Castle and heading off towards Leon Seaway across the marshes. They say, well, when they're up at Hadleigh Castle, they look down and in a slightly wooded area they could see this great big mansion house standing out. And as they're walking their way down, they've still got their eyes on this mansion house. As they get to where they believe this mansion house should be, there's nothing there. Now in other reports, they walk back up and look back down to where this mansion house is and they can see it. And they head back down again and once again they can't find it. Apparently they go back a couple of days later and they're again at the top of Hadleigh Castle looking down and they can see the rooftops of this big mansion house. They walk down to the direction of that house and once again there's nothing there. They are adamant that they see this big mansion house. They describe the chimneys, they describe the brick type, they describe the windows. I can't see any plans for that mansion house. But, and there is a but, if we just tweak their story a little bit and say they don't look down towards Lee, and it's not the marshes going over to Lee, and we're saying they're looking the other way to the west and looking towards Canvey, there was a great big mansion house down there up until 1857. long before they were ever there. That was demolished a long time ago. Could this be a time slip of them looking down onto this big mansion house that no longer exists? But again, that is by us tweaking that story. Their story is adamant they looked out and they were going down to the marshes of Leigh-on-Sea. Now, if they didn't know the area that well, they could say all that estuary there was Leigh-on-Sea. Now, when I went there, I filmed looking over all that area. And yes, it is quite a walk down from Hadleigh Castle down to the estuary. You got the sea-to-sea train that runs along there and all that sort of side of it. But if they're looking at a mansion house, that would certainly stick out in the distance. And if they're keeping their eyes on it as they're walking down that bank, they are going to get closer to it and be able to describe it better. But only if they're going west and not east. I'll leave that up to you, because it's a very well known local time slip story. It's been in a few books, I believe it's even in this book. And this isn't my original book. I've had one of these for a very long time, this book, and it's in my loft and I can't find it. And there was one particular bit of information I needed out of it, and I ended up buying it off of eBay again. I couldn't be bothered to go in the loft. It was too hot and I needed it really badly. So yeah, so I've now got two of those books. But Hadleigh Castle is a really strange one. The Black Shark, I would say we have a lot of reports where dogs stop and growl into the bushes. When I was there, and I think I got a little bit of filming of me just pointing the camera at the bush, something was moving in the bushes. Now, it's probably rabbits or badgers or foxes, right? When me and my wife and daughter were walking out of the car park, again, the bushes were rustling and my wife threw a stone into the bush to see if it would make it run out. But we didn't know. But wildlife, it's just wildlife. You know, there are things in those bushes. Dogs will pick up on a badger. You know, it will pick up on a fox. They are going to stop and growl. Red eyes, I don't know. I don't know about red eyes. It seems very, very typical. I do think it's very, very comical that the guy shouts at werewolf. He's probably saying I'll shout as well, actually. But yeah, it's Hadleigh Castle. It's well worth going up there and have a walk. Now, there are a lot of other little ghost stories that come out from Hadleigh Castle. You know, I say there's no ghost of a monk up there, but that doesn't stop the ghost of a monk being seen down the lane heading towards Hadleigh Castle. Again, a monk walking along the lane and he vanishes, because we've got a lot of those reports. I'm sure there was an abbey around there and someone's going to mention that in the comments, but please keep your comments coming. They've been brilliant. I love replying to them. It takes me a lot of time to reply to them. I really want to do a question and answer of yours. Now, if you've made it this far to the video, I want to know. So I've got to think of something to say. One of my subscribers suggested this. He turned around and said ghosts are real, but let's think of something else. If you get into this video, you've got to comment Ghostbusters in my comments for this video. We'll see how many of you actually watched the end. And keep well, keep cool, and I'll see you next Tuesday. No, I'll see you Tuesday for a video. I'll see you on Tuesday. Keep well. Bye.